about Earth Day. So every year, millions gather to show support for environmental protection. The first Earth Day was held in 1970, and surprisingly enough, in 1972, the Limits to Growth report of the Club of Rome was also published that further emphasized the need to protect the planet. It was evident then in the 70s, as it is clear now, that we cannot continue with business as usual, with the system as it is, with the continued consumption, continued harm on the planet, continued harm on the people. Last year on Earth Day, we had a range of speakers to discuss the urgent need to move from self-reinforcing cycles of collapse to allow for a system of life, diversity, and new patterns to emerge. We collectively explored the connections of emblematic and global actions for climate change linked to indigenous wisdom. This year, we continue to plant those seeds. We aim to share new meanings and learnings as we explore the theme, liberating learning narratives throughout the course of the year, as launched in the Learning Plan Festival on African Youth Liberating the Future. Liberating the future of the world from the world's most youthful continent. For this Earth Day, we'll be joined by two speakers with a background in education and teaching, both for and by young people, on Ubuntu and the environment. How can we take care of our planet? So I am now honored to introduce our first speaker, who is Pasco, a young social entrepreneur, environmentalist, passionate about community development from Uganda and an Ubuntu Learning Circle member. He's currently working at the Bioecosystem Conservation and Development Agency in Uganda, focusing on 3 areas: environment, biodiversity, and conservation, youth empowerment, and poverty alleviation. So Pasco, please go ahead and share with us today.
Well, it's a pleasure to be sharing with you about my work today. And I'm so much privileged for the networking, for the connections I can see various youth, especially today as we celebrate the Earth Day. I'm so much privileged to do some kind of sharing about the work that I'm doing. Okay, as said, I'm Pasco Twinamasiko, team leader, Bioecosystem Conservation and Development Agency. It's a youth-based civil society organization in Uganda, and our major area of focus, we do environment conservation, where we tackle on areas of wash, water, and sanitation. We also have biodiversity, climate change. And then another area we're working, it is youth empowerment, particularly we do skilling in this area when it comes to youth in energy, in job creation stuff. And we also do poverty alleviation, like we have some community programs on eco-entrepreneurship, green entrepreneurship. Yeah, and we have also established out some ventures for some people. Okay, particularly as we look forward to celebrating the Earth Day. Well, I have some suggestions, especially the fact that the world currently is facing high climate change variabilities. Yeah, almost every part of the earth, climate change is a very great hazard. Yes, and various actors have come on board to urge and maybe advocate for everyone's responsibility to address tackling climate change. And maybe our ideas or our roles as far as the Bioecosystem Conservation and Development Agency is concerned, what we have tried to put on the ground and play, mostly in circles so much on nature-based solutions. Yes, on the Environment Conservation Program, we have adapted the nature-based solution strategy, and then we incorporate into some other adaptation, climate resilient strategies, and most of them circle on protecting the natural ecosystem. Like we have got a broad wetland management program, where it is aiming at it is very broad. It is aiming at we are putting wetland conservation guidelines of specific wetland zones we are concentrating on, and then we also identified out some challenges as far as the natural ecosystem conservation is concerned. There is some kind of a very big gap divergence from the government officials, the implementers, policy formulators, implementers, that is the part of the government, and then maybe the grassroots community. There is a very big gap, and thus that big gap is hindering effective environmental conservation strategies. And in that, we are trying to see how we can connect the government and maybe the grassroots community, because the government officials will formulate in and maybe develop specific policies. Okay, and at the end of it all, the grassroots community, which mostly is in the vicinity of those natural ecosystems, let's say lakes, and forests, wetlands, it is not so much aware, and they don't normally prioritize consulting the grassroots community. Therefore, most times you find out there is some kind of like conflicts arising. So we are coming in that program to make sure that there is a win-to-win scenario. What the government officials develop as policies to govern or to direct how natural resources are managed is in line with what the community also doing. So, and then in that program, we also have some livelihood part. We are trying to develop some MOUs with the local communities, and then communities which are in the proximity, those are in lakes, such that we see if we can provide them with alternatives. If someone claims that, if for instance, we have identified some challenges like in resource over exploitation, and maybe the community members will be saying that we have no alternative to do or to get some cost of living from, and then we see which other alternative livelihood can we put up for those grassroots community members, such that they stop over dependency on those natural resources, overfishing, over the cutting down trees, cutting down grasses in wetlands and around the escarpments of lakes or around the buffer zones of lakes. So that's what we are trying to do, and we are having various partners in this program. Recently, we are trying to engage with the African Development Bank to see how we can partner with them in those programs. We are having the Ministry of Water and Environment. They are active partners, and and other CSOs. And then, apart from the wetland management plan program, we are also trying to devise some activities. We are trying to see, apart from resource over exploitation, like direct resource over exploitation in these natural resources, is the community, or are there ways the community can be told that they can effectively make the best use of those natural ecosystems? For instance, we partnered with some companies. There's some companies around. We partnered with Media Plus Limited in Uganda, Travel Bureau 2004, to establish a boat regatta event, which is always like a biannual event. It is always on Easter and maybe on Christmas. And that event normally brings out a very large crowd of people, and we do boat racing and all the food festivals. We do cycling, and so you find there are lots of people there. We teach them how they can effectively, or how they can use those natural resources apart from harvesting resources from them in other way, so promoting ecotourism especially. Then on the part of youth skilling, yes, we have some other small programs, especially on we have developed some program on energy, but it is in startup stage. It has not yet gone far, and we are seeing how we can make sure that the youth, when they leave schools, they have some skills as far as energy investment. We make sure that we involve them in energy research, energy investment, see that there is some kind of like there is some, we try to reduce on the skills required on the job market as far as energy is concerned. And then, because in most cases we find out that education is now very good. Education is very good, actually, if I would say. In Uganda, particularly, education is good, and there are lots of graduates who are coming up. But in most cases, lots of graduates are coming up, but they don't match. They don't match the ratio of job creation to the graduates number is not tallying up. So we try to see how we can make sure that they have those necessary skills that are required in the job market, and maybe how potential they can become as energy entrepreneurs. And then we also have some kind of like, we are looking forward to having a very global campaign on the part of education. And maybe sometimes I will write to the Ubuntu circle, but we are so much engaging in the youth movement, young people. And then there is some phenomenon that happened in Afghanistan where the rise of the Taliban, they had to change in some policies, education policies. The females are not allowed in the high education. They are limited. So that's where we are coming in. Is there a way we can try to put up some like advocacy campaigns to see that the rest of the world, the other youth or other young people around the world are not contented with such policy, because it is limiting the females' rights as far as attaining higher level education is concerned in Afghanistan. So we have reached out to a number of patterns. We are trying to engage with the World Bank group and maybe other young and other youth climate activist movements. Yeah, we are trying to create various partnerships around the globe to see that these campaigns are so much effective as far as the intended objectives we look forward to achieving in those are concerned. And maybe I will be reaching out to the Secretariat for Ubuntu Learning for that, and then we see how you can give him a hand. Yeah, and with us, maybe, yeah, I will welcome in some, we'll be seeing maybe some questions, yeah. And maybe some other last thing. Okay, we have tried to incorporate in some programs, though we are so much based in environment conservation, but we have identified out some problems that come alongside the misuse of natural ecosystem, like some sort of climate change. And so we have some past sexual health and productive activities trying to do, but basically that one, it it is being carried out around schools. We're trying to see how we can teach the young ones menstrual hygiene, teaching them and giving them materials on how they can make their own reusable sanitary pads. Yeah, because we see there is a very great interconnection between agriculture and climate change, especially in some areas. We have recently developed some projects. So with all that, maybe I'll be waiting for some questions. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Pasco, for sharing all of the work that you're doing. It is very widespread. There are many things, there are many different threads that you have shared with us today that I'm sure there are many questions. As Barbara was saying in the thing, such great work. Before we go into questions for Pasco, I would like to invite Emmaryn to also share her work, and then we will do like a big group discussion on everything that we have heard today. So I'll do a quick introduction of Emmaryn, who is Programs Officer, Environment and Climate Action at All Africa Students Union, currently focused on demystifying climate education in Ghana. So Emmaryn, please go ahead and share with us today.
Right. Thank you so much, Nolita, and I welcome all our Ubuntu Learning Circle members for joining us today to commemorate the Earth Day. I am proud to represent the All Africa Students Union as an African youth with a significant opportunity to catalyze global transformation. Today, Earth Day is widely recognized as the largest secular observance in the world, marked by more than 1 billion people every year, like the ASU and the Learning Planet Institute. And we mark it as a day to change human behavior and create global, national, and local policy changes. The fight for a clean environment continues with increasing urgency as the ravages of climate change become more and more apparent every day. As the awareness of our climate crisis grows, so that civil society mobilization like us, which is reaching a fever pitch across the globe today, which is disillusioned by a low level of ambition following the adoption of the Paris Agreement in 2015 and frustrated by the international environmental liturgy. Citizens of the world are rising up to demand for greater action, and we would like to have a clean environment for our people. And today, I would like us to commemorate today as well as tomorrow, which is the original date for the Earth Day, to try to pamper the planet Earth. As the Programs Officer for Environment and Climate Action, I would like to point out some projects or initiatives that we have taken at the All Africa Students Union. So the All Africa Students Union actually is the umbrella body of all students in Africa and also in the diaspora. So we have membership in all 54 countries, and we work through student unions to try to improve education. Based on environment and climate action, we have geared up some projects which are based on the pillars of the Earth Day, which is to act boldly, innovate broadly, and to implement equitably. So earlier this year, we acted boldly by launching a climate education campaign to the Ghanaian government for them to be able to see climate education as important as arithmetic, as science, as English in Anglophone countries, as French in Francophone countries. We would want to inculcate climate education in our educational curriculum at the average level. So we launched a campaign and we had a march for climate justice as well as climate education. We also went ahead to participate in the National Climate Change Week and the Green Economy Week with the ministries of Environment and Protective Agency. We had so many campaigns, and we are now almost halfway through to make climate education a very compulsory subject for all and sundry, and we look to replicate that in other member states. We would also want to start having a Pan-African youth debate so that we bring together young African people, students, to come and share their ideas and perspectives on how to tackle the climate crisis. Now tree planting activities because we would like to expand our reforestation scope. So this is what we do. And for this year, in a few months, we would also continue to have about 1,000 seedlings planted as part of our annual activities. We would also want to, since climate crisis is so urgent and we need all hands on deck, we are not just limiting it to students who are interested in climate change. It's not just limited to a particular group of people who are particularly interested or science students. We have moved ahead to inculcate all people who are just interested in different fields. So this year we are doing something exceptionally different. So we would like to bring on board the creative arts, also bring in their talent to demonstrate how important it is for us to protect Mother Earth. So we have a project that is themed the Green Guiding Growth Summit that will take place in Ghana as well as in Ethiopia later in the year. So we're going to bring in people like storytellers, like photographers, artists, actors, production, you name it, whatever it is in the creative industry, we are going to bring on board these people to be able to join the fight for climate education. So these are but a few of the projects that we are doing to enhance our environment. And this is not just based in Ghana, though most of our activities are based in Ghana because the All Africa Students Union is headquartered in the capital of Ghana, but our activities run throughout from East Africa, North Africa, West Africa, and Southern Africa. And today being the day that the Learning Planet Institute is commemorating as the saying that we should go ahead and change our human behavior. It's quite difficult to change from a habit, but let's put in mind that Mother Earth needs us and we are her children. And I would want us to invest in our planet and protect our future, as it is the theme for Earth Day 2023. So today, anyone listening to me, watching me today, I would entreat you to reduce the single use of plastic, to reuse your plastic, or taking your unused plastic materials to a recycling plant in your local community. If you are going to going somewhere that is a short distance, try to ride a bicycle to the place or take a walk, inhale some fresh air, do something exceptionally different just to make Mother Earth a happy place once again. So you could do activities like planting a tree, using native plants, native wildlife, flowers, anything that could, reduce the emission. So let us come together to try to protect the earth. So this is the message that I have for all of us today. And do not forget that we are all in this together and that I am because we are. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Emmaryn. for, again, an initiative with a wide-ranging activities and themes that you're focusing on. Thank you for taking the time to share that today. I see that our chat has been pretty active with questions and comments coming in. So this is the time to have those discussions. Please feel free to raise your hand or read the question that you have shared in the chat. So I see that, Barbara, you had a question about, you were wondering whether Pasco works with traditional ecologists. Pasco, I don't know if is Pasco still here? Oh yeah, he is. If you don't mind, can you please share your answer in the wide plenary for all of us to hear?
Okay. Well, thank you. Well, concerning traditional ecologists, okay, we haven't applied that approach so much, but in some areas we have identified that, for instance, in the program of the wetland management plan, we have identified that some wetlands have been preserved for such a long time due to the traditional or the cultural attachment given to them by those grassroots community in their vicinity. Well, communities have some attachments, traditional attachments, some fears. Like, for instance, there is a certain wetlands where communities respect a certain bird. Okay, in their tradition, they give respect to that bird, and it is so much into a certain wetland, and that wetland has been preserved simply because the presence of that bird. So, because of the traditional attachments given to it. So, we haven't so much worked hand in hand with the traditional ecologists, but we see a lot of traditional cultural preservation that has also helped in conserving some of those that have been encountered in dealing with the grassroots community, and maybe the private companies, and maybe the government. Well, there are quite a number of them. Like, for instance, at first, our intentions were like directly engaging the communities in a green entrepreneurship. Like, if we formed like community ecotourism projects, if we formed like small youth fisheries projects, specifically on green entrepreneurship. But then we encountered a lot of disturbances. We encountered a lot of challenges, and then these challenges made us that we have to develop the conservation guidelines, because we found out that the grassroots communities that were using those natural resources had no MOUs with the government. The governments were trying to enforce laws on those ecosystems. Let's take, for instance, the buffer zone measurements. They would find the local grassroots youth carrying out some fishing, nothing like collaborative management. So it gave us a picture that we have to develop guidelines first, and we have to develop them in a collaborated manner. We have to bring the government, we have to bring the private sector, some companies. There were, okay, I can give out some live examples. There is a certain wetland which was being degraded because of some infrastructure development. There was a company that was building, or that was constructing electric poles, and they were supposed to be moving across the wetland, and then they were draining a certain wetland part. And then when we intervened in, at least the biggest portion of the wetland that would be destroyed, it was somehow saved. Yeah, since it was the government thing, they went ahead, but intended plan where that electric pole construction was supposed to be, they reduced. So there is a lot of disconnection between the policy formulators and maybe the grassroots community. So we came in to develop the wetland conservation guidelines, and they are not partially on wetlands because that guideline, it is covering a very big area. It is a zone. It is comprised of forests, it is comprised of lakes, it is comprised of rivers, it is comprised of wetlands. So we are developing in guidelines for all those natural ecosystems, and we see how infrastructures can come in the different roles of the private sector, how they can come in, though it has been bureaucratic because most people do turn down use ideas. Okay, when you come like you young person and you have like a developmental idea, it will take some good time for these guys in the government, in the system, to pick it up until they see some kind of level of seriousness. But in most cases, once you have an idea and then you go and present it to them, they will first undermine this is a young person. So that has been a very serious challenge. Yeah, and specifically, I went into that sector when I was a little bit younger, and so it has given me some very hectic time trying to deal with those guys. But of recent, we had an MOU signed with the Ministry of Water and Environment, and most of the directives, at least for instance, most of the work we have done with the local government, the directives would come from the ministry. They say this and this and this, go and work with this. We go and work with these young people. So these guys on the local government level obviously welcome that, but specifically when they are getting directives from their bosses. But here on the ground, these guys will be seeing us as people who are not serious. And then besides, also another challenge.
Oh, no, sorry, thank you. I wanted to give Emmaryn also an opportunity to answer a question. Before we go into a question in the chat, one thing, a link that I see on both the intervention that you made, Emmaryn, sorry, and then what you had just mentioned, Pasco, was the challenge of being young and having ideas and wanting to work with local institutions. As the All Africa Students Union, you had mentioned quite a lot about climate education and getting climate education into the schools. Can you please share your experiences also as a students union trying to work on influencing curriculum at schools in your country?
Yes, absolutely. So with us, we started with a campaign where we had to march during the Ghana's Independence Day. Independence Day is where you have all dignitaries coming together to commemorate the end of colonial rule. So that is where we actually scheduled to have our campaign so that all our stakeholders, both local and international community, would see that though we are happy that we are celebrating our independence, there's a challenge with our environment and our education. So we time to go on to launch this campaign, telling our leaders that just as we do have other subjects made compulsory, the most important thing, the only thing that we have in common is the earth. Why don't we have climate education as a compulsory subject? Over here, climate education has been reserved for an elite, if I should use that term. So we had to use this initiative. This was a very bold, attempt. We did have challenges, but eventually we pulled through with it, and we made them know that we would want climate education to be inculcated in the curriculum. So right from the primary level, elementary, we scaled it up to the tertiary institution. So that happened in the first quarter of the year, just the second quarter, and we were invited by our country's Ministry of Environment. We were also invited by the EPA to come and then discuss ways of trying to inculcate climate education in the curriculum. So we invited number of schools and number of leaders as well as the international community, and we made our plea to make them know that climate change can only be combated if you all do understand that it resonates from our personal lifestyle activities. So instead of us reserving that to just the elite or people in the science community, we will want to trickle that down. And that was the positive. The impact that we had was to have an invitation the following month to speak more on it, for which I presented. We spoke more on it. It was a week-long celebration where we had a National Climate Change Week, as well as the green economy. And one of the things that we tackled was to reduce the use of single-use plastics. So the ministry have taken that into consideration, and also to reduce the use of second-hand or certain second-hand equipment. So currently, the Ghanaian government is trying to put a ban, not trying to put a ban, but has actually put a ban on the importation of using obsolete technological devices, which also emit a lot of carbon gases. So this is the step that we have had. Aside the campaigns, we are also running a 3-month climate negotiators training program for all Africa students and youth. So we have divided the continent into 4. So we will have representation from West Africa, East Africa, North Africa, and Southern Africa, where we will put them together. Those who could afford to come in, we'll have a hybrid session where we'll go learn through digital means like Zoom, and some would have to be having classes in person. So we would have them be trained by our climate experts here from the ministry, and they will undergo through 3 months training so that we could represent them. We would want to have the youth at the forefront. So come November, as we'll be having COP28, we will be training these youth to go on and try to fight for their local or respective community. So these are one of the initiatives that we are taking at the All Africa Students Union, and also with the reforestation programs. That is it. We usually, the challenges come with when we want to scale things to the national and international levels, where we have a lot of bureaucracy, and here in Africa, to be a youth, getting your voice heard is quite challenging. We would have to go through a whole lot of bureaucracy and challenges, sometimes not even having our voices heard. But as the Students' Union, we continue to push, to continue to persevere, to make our voices heard. So sometimes we even go to the Parliament House to have like a demonstration, because it's quite difficult to have an appointment with your ministers or the leadership. So we try to act boldly in certain situations to have this done. So these are some of the things that we will be doing aside our reforestation programs. And also, as I mentioned earlier, the Guiding Green Growth, which is going to be a summit that will bring together creative art industry players to come and then speak about. So the main aim or the objective of the Guiding Green Growth Summit is to share indigenous knowledge in how to tackle climate change. We do believe that for us to tackle climate change, we would have to act according to our respective issues, and we do acknowledge indigenous knowledge. So instead, we don't believe that there is a one size fits for all climate issues. So what we do is to try to bring together different African youth from all over the continent, and then we tell them, we hear from them their experiences of how their indigenous or their local people are able to tackle climate change. We want climate change or climate education to be on the lips of each and everyone, and we would want the locals to understand, irrespective of us using the official language in our local dialect, in our local language we have. So we have certain agricultural practices that farmers here use to tackle dryness or rain drought. So these are the kind of things that we would be expecting to learn, to share different knowledge on indigenous knowledge on how to tackle climate change. Climate change shouldn't be limited to using previous or colloquial, view of having to read in books to tackle your situations. We are pretty sure that they have practices that they use to tackle climate science data. And we also want to also take it to the religious, for those who do not believe in climate change, and also with religion to make people conserve the environment. So these are some of the initiatives and the challenges that we have had so far as a student union. Thank you very much, Nolita.
Thank you, Emmaryn. Catherine, I see that you have your hand raised, but can I actually start with Kwanele and then I'll come to you? Thank you. Kwanele, please go ahead.
Thank you. Emmaryn, a quick one, please. I just want to find out, in terms of your work and also in dealing with high-level government and international governments too, also with your local governments and students, how do you accelerate your work? Because mainly it is focused on, because we have three pillars, which is behavior, culture, and then policy. How does all of your work fit into it? Because I see that mainly it's focusing on behavior and culture. And what does it have to entail in terms of policy? Because most of the work that we do, if we don't link it up to the policies that our government have implemented or regulated for the past years and decades, we're still just trying to do programs that are going to be just in vain. I'm not sure if I'm making sense here. But I just want to find out, how do you accelerate all of your work and incorporate it into these three themes, mainly linking them into policy and regulations and seeing how the work fits and intersect in these three spheres?
All right. Thank you so much, Panele. Like I said earlier in my first part of the answer, so usually at the student union, as we go ahead to do both the behavior and the culture things, we have a session where we document our initiative, our activities, and put together outcomes. And with these reports, we go ahead to have discussions or have sometimes it's also a closed door discussions with our leaders. So we do have publications and reports that we submit to the responsible ministries, and from there they invite us to speak. And as I said, that's the launch of the campaign that we had at the Independence, which was quite unusual of any local institution for us to. We actually, it wasn't a radical approach, but it was quite unusual, which took them by surprise, because usually during the independence celebration at the parade, you have people commending government for what they've done so far and all of that. And all of a sudden, there's this group of young people who are now demanding climate justice, who are demanding climate education. The impact of it was that At the end of it, we sent reports to the agencies where they invited us a month later for us to discuss how we can inculcate climate education. As I speak now, Ghana is going to be one of the countries to actually spearhead climate education in their curriculum, starting from the local to the tertiary level. And we are also trying inculcate a MOOC proposal where we would have those in the tertiary institutes to access action. So for us, this is what we do. Our actions are actually documented and then taken a step further to the ministries where they invite us. And as I said earlier too, we had a ban on obsolete equipment, that the importation of obsolete devices. So our actions actually are making some impact. It may be slow, it may take time, but they do make an impact once we have our voices heard. And so these are the two main evidences that I could prove to you. If you could go on the internet to see that Ghana has banned the importation of second-hand goods. And that is what it is when it comes to the policy formulation. This is the impact that we are making. We are also having several on the use of plastic, because we do know that although the good side of plastic is that it is durable, we would want to reduce the use of plastic. And this is quite a hectic and very sensitive issue, because poor people also rely on plastics to preserve their stuff. So we are starting by making a campaign on anti-plastic use. So these are the kind of things, just for the sake of time, I would say that we document our activities and then take it to the responsible ministries or agencies, and they do have a look at it. Sometimes it is that quick as the climate march that we had an immediate response. Sometimes it takes time, but the goal is to continue to push, to persevere, because that's in our planet, and we would have to protect in our future. Thank you, Kanele. I hope I answered your question, much to your satisfaction.
Thank you, Emmaryn. Catherine, you still have your hand raised? And we're like nearing the last 30 minutes of our circle, our meeting. So if we can keep our answers shorter so we can have more people maybe asking questions, that would be cool. So Catherine, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you so much. And I agree that we're running short of time, but it is so great to hear these quality long responses and going into depth as well. So thank you for doing that up to this point. And I hope that we can fit in some more interesting questions and answers. I just wanted to pick up on that thread that you were mentioning, Emmaryn, about teaching about climate change and a climate change curriculum, because through the Learning Planet at the moment, we actually have a Teachers for the Planet program, which is looking for teachers who have innovative solutions for saving the environment in their schools. And we are looking to submit 100 solutions at COP28 this year. So we have a guaranteed spot to do that. And my colleague, Sarah, who's sadly not able to join us today, but who is running the Teachers for the Planet program, she also has an Earth Day session later today. So I'll post the details if anyone is interested to attend that. But also, if anyone knows any teachers who would like to submit solutions for a climate change curriculum or climate education, I will send the link in the chat, and it would be really great to hear your solutions. And as you were saying, Emmaryn, it doesn't always have to be, sometimes it's quite basic. It's just about changing from single-use plastic to a more durable solution. And so the solutions don't have to be innovative. It could just be something that you're implementing in your context. But it'd be really great to hear from this group, especially on how we are tackling climate change and climate education in our communities. So I'll send the link in the chat right now.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you for sharing. You hit a note actually on a lot of things that I'm seeing in the chat of people sharing their own experiences on climate education or education in general. For example, Shirley, I see that you've shared a lot about your social enterprise. If you don't mind, can you please actually articulate that to the broader group? Very curious to hear what's happening.
Yeah, thank you, Nolita. So I'm from Namibia in Southern Africa. So we've got a social enterprise that's focusing on food systems transformation. So as part of our projects, we implemented school gardens for the schools that are having school feeding programs, those ones that are having feeding programs. So we implemented about 6 vegetable gardens. So as part of that project, so we needed to give training to the teachers as well as the learners. So I was just emphasizing how the sustainability or the continuity of those projects are not so feasible, or because it's mostly the teachers that are given the responsibility to manage those programs, and as we know, their core function is to teach, right? So mostly the gardens don't get as much attention as would like it to be, So like I was explaining, we have seen that it really needs the whole community to be involved, so we can also have that social cohesion, right? Because most of these schools that are having feeding programs are in places where there are vulnerable people. So yeah, but from our side as an institution, we continuously, like we have created WhatsApp groups, so we continuously give information, we give training on and off, we guide them. When they have need support, we give support. And when we do site visits, we also pass by, just to give support. But yeah, it really needs a lot of dedication and sort of commitment also from those who do the curricula to really include this as not as topics, as part of a science subject, but as a subject on its own, So yeah, that is just from my side.
Thank you for sharing. I'm noticing that there is quite a theme that's coming up where the climate education and then the practices of conservation, and then also the link to, like you mentioned, feasibility of like the primary function of the teacher is one thing, so it's hard for it to be feasible. I'm seeing that a lot of people relating to that on the chat. I'd actually want to ask John also to share, because I know that you also have a program that's similar to what Shirley had mentioned. If you don't mind, please, John, to share about what you've been writing about in the chat.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity. We have learned from the network of schools that we're working with that the food gardening generally fails if it's not integrated as a school curriculum focus area. So what we've done is to flip the language and to say most of our schools do not have science laboratories. So we say, well, let's change the narrative and to say, actually, we do have a science laboratory. It's now outside. And it's where we do our hypothesis testing around planting and around soil quality, around water testing. And so then the science teachers go into a bit of a flurry because it's new for them. And we remind them that we're Africanizing a curriculum and we're humanizing it. And we're starting with the entry point of heritage. So we're not trying to teach you something from Western theory. We're trying to remind you of what you know and what you know from your forefathers, what you know from their forefathers. So you tie it back. And when you go back to indigenous language then, or to mother tongue language, you'll be surprised at the beauty of the words that unlocks the journey back into the heritage. So we teach it from the point of view of we can solve our own global problems of food insecurity by the ambition to everyone becomes a grower. And every school is the center point for teaching and learning about growing. And just to give you one quick snapshot of how that's worked, in our community in Garankuwa near Pretoria, the parents have loved this. And so we grow our food in the schools in tires, in second-hand tires. So we recycle the tires, fill them up with soil, and then 2 or 3 children take a tire and they plant lettuce or whatever they like, and they begin to say, we think this will grow better than that. So they are doing the scientific exploration and they can document that. But when the parents found out about this, the children were telling them that the tires work. We went to the second-hand tire place, and they said, you can have as many tires as you like, just send the parents. So we've got about 12 parents who've put 6 tires together, and they're growing their own vegetables in very confined space. And then we introduced the idea of vertical gardening, and that just liberates, because then space is no longer a limitation. So I just share that with you. I think it is a paradigm shift from apologizing for why you've got a food garden to claiming it as a necessary part of curriculum and as an Africanization of the curriculum to debunk the idea that you need test tubes in a boring classroom to actually learn science. You learn science by getting your hands in the muck. There we go. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I see, Louise, also you mentioned that you're working on something similar with your colleagues in Bristol. May you please share?
Yeah, this is a part of it's actually not African focused, it's a UK project, but it's lovely to see that we're all sharing the same concerns, and I'm working with colleagues, and the disconnect of people in the UK from the world, the natural environment around them. So sort of interested in the relationships with soil and clay and sand and all these materials which are under threat. And I've got a colleague who's working in a place called Schumacher. It's just south of Bristol, and she's been working with school kids, sort of just getting them to know soil and sort of getting them to interact with it and play with it as a first step towards actually knowing that soil is something where life comes from. But we're so sort of post-industrial here. You know, we've created a lot of the problems, I admit, for the rest of the world, but in the UK, everyone's so far removed. You're either in the countryside and doing agriculture, or you're not. But it's really heartwarming to hear what everyone else is doing, because you know we're very much at the beginning stages, just trying to bring together a project which hopefully will start making some steps towards improving this little bit of the planet. But you know, when I listen to what John's doing and what Shirley's doing, it's really, really heartwarming. So you know, I think I've got a lot to learn from them. And the other thing, I'm part of the UNESCO Bridges Coalition, and I'm thinking what everyone's been saying. It's so important because there's so much knowledge out there, and I think the problem is that there's sort of this huge divide between the experts who think they've got the solutions, whether or not they have, but they don't really listen to what the problems are on the ground. And I think that's the really important thing. And it's lovely to hear people talking about grassroots solutions. And you know, you might feel that this is frustrating because it's a small scale, and it might be hard trying to get in contact. As thinking about the stuff going on in Ghana, Emmaryn's work in Ghana, and how important that is, because if you don't get the children interested, you know, we haven't got a future. And I know it's their future that we're thinking about, but if you get them interested and get those grassroots things and from the bottom up, I think that's more likely to be successful than experts coming in with a solution that doesn't actually listen to what local needs are and local concerns and questions and practices, and you know, the need to use plastic because that's the material that's available, even though we know that plastic's bad, or the need to use carbon-based fuels, even though we know they're bad. You know, you can't just sort of come up with a single solution. So I think it's these little these little mosaic steps working together are the future. So I'm not sure if I'm making much sense, but that's really what I wanted to say.
Thank you. No, you made all the sense. You made all the sense.
Thank you.
I see, Ashwini, that you have unmuted and you've turned on your camera. Okay, yeah, go for it.
Thank you so much. You have just noticed so quickly. I was just about to show my face. Anyway, hi everyone. I'm Ashwini and I'm actually from Nepal. And I'm from Masterpiece, which is based in Europe, but we have a huge number of networks, more than 60 plus in Africa, in Asia, Latin America, and Europe. So what we do is we try to connect with those networks. We try to escalate their project. We facilitate them. We help them to bring their locally initiated projects to the global level. That's what we do basically, and we can talk much more about that in our website. I can see you through the link. So I just want to talk about the point that Luis just highlighted about the importance of having children or the youth to understand about these climate issues, because that's how it really should be penetrating, because that's why I even posted in the chat that it has to be bottom to top. We always talk about top to bottom. Of course, it has to like somehow match together, but the bottom to top approach is very important. And as I'm more focused on Asia, so recently we have discussed with some of our partners in Asia, and they, like whole world in South Asia especially is gonna be one of the hottest area where climate will hit very hard. So we have to act very fast. And what we came up with the solution is that, like Luis mentioned, there has to be this grassroots level movement in terms of conversation, in terms of activities, in terms of dissemination, that slowly can take and bring more and more NGOs, CSOs, and stakeholders together towards this climate adaptation, mitigation, and resiliency. So our idea is to mobilize youth, our children in those local communities. So how we come up with that, how we're gonna do is we come up with the term. So we call them, let's have those young youth to be called as the planet heroes, or planet heroes or climate heroes. So who are really advocating for climate, who wants to accelerate the climate momentum to the larger audience in their community, in their country, in their region, and global. So we want to approach in 4 different ways. Well, first is we are terming it as a learn planet. So Masterpiece program as a planet hero is to develop series of trainings, workshop, interactive dialogue, and simulations to learn about the climate change, community-led solutions, and become active ambassadors to bring change in their local level. So that is learn planet. And the next one is to paint planet. We also believe in bringing changes by the means of art. So we want to learn environmental solution thinking and express their own design for a better sustainable planet. So we want to have these walls of connection idea, where the walls are not the division. It's just a physical thing. So let's just dismantle it through art. We paint it. We paint our planet, on which we create changes through art. That is why we come up with the paint planet. And second is the third one is to play planet. Like we're talking about children, the youth, and it has to be more creative, interactive, and they should also feel ownership, that they are really enjoying these movements, and they understand what is in the stake. So we want to have these planet heroes to participate in the environment, share their knowledge with other peers outside the schools, not only within the school or within their home, but outside beyond that, and learn how to make their dreams for planet visible at creative designs, and to become a caretakers of the planet. That is play planet. And the last one, last not but the least, is to design planet. So we have to design planet in such a way that we want to live in. And I remember the lady from the Ghana was saying that they really focus on not using plastic more, be reused. So we have to design in that way. Our planet has to be designed in that way, from the grassroots level to top level, so that we can reuse more. We just reduce the plastics, we reduce other means of our waste, creating waste. So we want to design planet in such a way that there is no more waste, there is more creativity, and there is more ownership from all levels. So this is the idea that we are developing. And for the first page, we want to focus on Nepal, Bangladesh, and India. So that is like 3 multi-country projects. And later we want to accelerate once it is more, we found out more the concrete ideas, then we want to escalate to the other countries in region and as a whole movement in terms of strategic way, in terms of getting more funding to do more projects to the like beyond these three countries. So that is the idea, and please feel free to join our movement, and also I'll share our website and also the LinkedIn profile, and hopefully we can extend the conversation even beyond this circle. And it's such a pleasure hearing these all new ideas from Africa. And also I'm very impressed with the work that has been Pasco and Emmaryn has been doing in Ghana and this country. So great to be here, and yeah, looking forward to more. I hope this conversation is not only within Zoom, but we take one step forward and just taking one more footstep ahead, and looking forward to help collaborate and be part of the discussion. Thank you, Nolita and Learning Planet as well for this opportunity.
Thank you, Ashwini. We're getting close to the end of our circle, our meeting today, but I want to leave space for one more person if anyone wants to share an insight or ask a question to our speakers who joined us today. I'll give that like 10 seconds for anyone to raise their hand, share anything. Okay. Well, it seems we've reached a very natural end, and that's good. There's been a lot of sharing, a lot of insights, a lot of advice. You know, I've been seeing going around on the chat, people sharing what they've done and where the opportunities to improve are. One thread that I noticed happening, probably not as explicitly, is the conversation between the grassroots work and how to then get to like a national or a global conversation about the work that's happening in the grassroots. Louise had mentioned that she's been seeing some like successes on the grassroots level, if I'm not misquoting you, Louise, but then, oh, maybe it was Emmaryn, but then when it goes to the point of, okay, how do we pollinate to a different area, then there's a bit of complexity there. And that's very interesting. Maybe it would make a good topic for the next circle, is to discuss the complexity now of, you know, expanding initiatives or trying to see similar impact of a certain type of work in a different context. I think that it came up basically with almost everyone who spoke today, and I think it would be a great thing to like share. A thing that I noted was in both Pasco and you, Emmaryn, in the things that you had spoken about when you're speaking about the work you're doing with the ministers and with the political officials in the different areas, is the strategies are very different depending on the timeline and how quickly you want the intervention to be and how widespread you want it to be, to a point where, Emmaryn, you said sometimes you just go and you have to protest. It is what it is. And I was like, you know, that's another thing that comes up every circle, where I remember in the festival, Dr. Rampele said, and also Bolaji had said the same thing about this is the fight for this generation. This is the specific fight. And so sometimes it's not always a policy document. Sometimes it is a board, and you're probably trespassing on some property to say you have to listen to what I have to say today. So I don't know. I'm very energized by the session. Thank you so much, everyone, for everything you have shared. We're now getting into the news part of the community news. If anyone has any news to share with people in the circle, you know, this is what's happening, and I'm inviting everyone to this. As Catherine had said earlier, there will be another Earth Day session, and she shared the information in the chat. So please raise your hand. No more than 2 minutes of sharing, like, this is what's going on, if anyone is interested, etc. And then also we just have like 2 points to share as Learning Planet and Club of Rome at the end of our own call to action, and then we'll close the circle. So Pasco, then Anne, then to you, Catherine, on the Learning Planet news.
Thank you. It was a very great pleasure sharing about our work today. And I'm so much amazed with the work for the students movement. So, okay, my concern now, it is all about like, okay, requesting for your partnership, or maybe like for your support. I told you that there is a certain campaign we are going to develop, but the beginning of that campaign was so much into climate-related issues, and we also that the rise of the Taliban in Afghanistan brought in some kind of like establishment of new policies, and especially these policies are against some kind of SDGs, like for the issue of gender equality and education particularly. Well, the Taliban did establish at the beginning of this year, did establish policies that prohibit female students from accessing higher education in the universities and the related laws that were there. Okay, but we observe and see that the females globally have done some really crucial work, and they are really doing something very great, even to the environment conservation, climate, entrepreneurship. I believe that an injustice in one part of the world, surely it would be an injustice in any part of another world. And as one of an SDG that establishes, the UN SDG establishes that there has been a partnership. We see that this is something which is really not good, especially for our sisters in Afghanistan. So it means that the number of them who had come up maybe to give a platform to their fellows, now it is being what? It is being slashed off seriously. So we're like we need to develop or do some kind of a global campaign, and with various institutions and partners on board, and maybe especially the biggest issue would be requesting from different institutions or movements that would like the use of their logos on those campaign, on the campaign. We're going to create some graphic materials that we'll be using for those campaigns. And maybe I will write into the secretary of Ubuntu Learning Circle when sometime like in a week's time, 7-day time, and we'll be launching out those campaigns. Yeah, we believe we may not do something direct there, but at least we can try to help them, and maybe we stand with them, and maybe these policy formulators in Afghanistan, maybe they would try to see how they can reduce on the restrictions with them, because the females are doing some real great job. Yeah, and sincerely, that's particularly the news that are on, and that's my request that maybe I would put to the Ubuntu Learning Circle community. For now, this is something which is very crucial for us. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. If you have any links to share, please share them on the chat right now. But I also noted that you said you'd email Catherine when you have more information. So when we do, we'll add that to the next calendar inviters, updates, etc. So we'll do Anne, and then Lindelo, and then you, Catherine. Keep bumping down the line. You'll be last, Catherine. Please go ahead, Anne.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for a wonderful session. I just quickly wanted to share, we talked a lot about changing the curriculum, from a bottom up, and including local knowledge, and that it is a fight to, for young people to demand from the teachers. There's one approach that I'm trying out. I'm a little bit like John. If this doesn't work, try something else. Is to organize the students themselves. I do that now at higher education level. Say, don't wait for your professors. I mean, they're so stuck in the rabbit hole. But you can organize yourself in teams, and the classrooms are out there. In the community gardens, in the zero waste shops and stuff like that. So we offer them like a framework. We're not saying to just go and figure it out yourselves. They're a pedagogical framework. We use the metaphor of co-creating a young person's guide to the future, which resonates with the masterpiece approach of designing the planet. So I just wanted to share that. I'm working together now with Green Offices International that work on, greening the campus. They, how can we embed this? We propose it to the higher education institutions, but yeah, they're moving too slow. But like Green Offices and other youth movements are already, mobilizing students to be angry, and now we want to give them this and go beyond anger and just reclaim education and do it yourselves. And I'll share the link. We're on LinkedIn, Young Person's Guide to the Future. Raad is one of the graduates, so she can tell about the impact of the program. So it's just I'm working on that track. It's everything is important. The more battles we have, but don't just wait for the professors. It's gonna take too much time. We can self-organize to reclaim education to a certain degree, but of course we need to also embed that, not just make it something accessible to the already motivated, but make it attractive and maybe also, I don't know, recognized for everybody who wants to become a master in education or a master in economy. If you don't know how the planet functions, how can you be, that would be my dream, that it would be like a mandatory program to go through this learner-driven program before you go to a master's degree. But okay, that was it. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. Yes, Linda, please.
Wonderful discussions. I'm glad I joined, actually. I'm just worried that there were just too few of us in the room. So I just want to quickly share that we've just launched the Climate Coaching Alliance. It's part of the Global Climate Coaching Alliance. It's mainly for coaches, but we invite everybody who is concerned about climate change, including young people. Remember now, coaching is not just for your senior executives, it's for everyone, the youth, middle management, and young people generally. So I will be sending each one of you invites. Hopefully we are all on LinkedIn. I will send you invites. We launched on the 4th of April. Our first meeting is on the 24th of April in the evening, South African time, around 5 o'clock, but I'll send the invite. Because I think the idea is that sustainability now goes beyond financial sustainability. We have to look at the environment, social issues, global issues. And therefore, we're bringing in everybody to say, how do we then look at this new approach of looking at sustainability? I also am very excited about the idea of introducing climate change as part of the curriculum. I think that will help a lot, because in boardrooms right now, the leaders that are there, they are learning, but it's taking a lot of shift and change for them to understand. So thank you very much, and I'm glad I was part of this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we get to Catherine.
Great, thank you so much, Nolita, and thank you for doing a great job facilitating this session and this section as well. It's nice to hear that there's so much news and interesting things going on in our community. So I have a few things to share with you. I already shared the Features for the Planet program, where we're collecting solutions for a climate curriculum, and we'd like to present 100 of those at COP28 this year. So please do share widely. I'll include the link to that on our process so that you have it on hand. And also just to remind you, we have been taking notes, and those are public, and Rod will share the link to that in the chat. And two other things I wanted to share. So number one, we actually wanted to vote for a messaging platform to stay in touch a bit more immediately than email. And we thought that this session could be a good opportunity. But as Lindela pointed out, there aren't a lot of us in this session. So we'll vote here, I think, if that suits you guys. We were thinking of three main platforms to vote on to just keep in touch more regularly. So that was Telegram and WhatsApp and Slack. And if you had any preferences, do a quick survey or poll. And I'm just going to ask you to vote for that. And then we'll keep track of that, and we'll create that platform and let you know when it's decided. Okay, and You should receive it on your screen now. So if everyone can respond to that poll. Are you seeing it? Maybe Nolita can confirm. Yes, okay, I see one vote. Okay, perfect. So while you're all voting for that, I also wanted to share another piece of news. So in addition to the Teachers for the Planet Circle and the Ubuntu Circle, we have another really nice circle called the Youth Empowerment Circle. And part of that is that we have over 200 youth fellows from over 50 countries. And those youth fellows join our community to become inspired by people who are creating changes in their communities. They do a whole lot of initiatives. They have a youth empowerment council, which manages the circle as well, in conjunction with my colleague Ed, who used to be leading the circle. And the round of applications for the next cohort of youth fellows has just opened, and it will be open until the 19th of May to anyone who is between the ages of 12 and 25. So if you would like to nominate anyone from your organizations to join, or if you would like to join yourself or to share this with a network, that would be really great. I'm sharing it in the chat, and you'll be contacted by Ed updates on that. And I will also be adding updates within our thread. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, we reach the end